Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Jackie Cummings. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions and Financial Aid for graduate students here at the College of Communication at Boston University. So I'm really excited for today's webinar. We have 3 current graduate students joining us to talk a little bit about their experience so far in the program. And it's a great opportunity for you to ask questions about student life, programs, and I hope that it'll be really useful and helpful for all of you. So before we get started, I do want to cover just a few general housekeeping items. So I do want folks to know that this event is being recorded. So we will be sharing a recording of this event with other prospective students. Also, if you want to re-watch it later on, it will be available to do so. We also really do want to hear from you and get to all of your questions. But if you're not asking a question, please keep your microphone muted, just so that we can hear the speakers and anybody that's asking a question. If you are asking a question, you can definitely use the chat, or you can raise your hand using the raise the hand function on Zoom. And when you do ask your question, it would be really helpful if you could introduce yourself before asking your question, just so we can all get to know each other a little bit more. And really what we're focused on today is the current student experience. So we can definitely talk about the application and applying to BU. Our current students are really excited to answer questions about how it's been for them so far, living in Boston, what their first semester in the program has been like, activities, working on campus, things like that. So those are definitely the types of questions that you can ask. But if there's something that we don't have a chance to address today, or if you have other questions that you might not want to ask in this session, you can always email us. So our email is on this slide, and I'll share it again at the end in the chat. But it's comgrad, so COMGRAD @bu.edu. So you can always email us there. We can help you connect you with the ambassadors if you have a question for a specific panelist. But with that being said, and those items out of the way, I really am excited to introduce our panelists today. So to get started, Christina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Christina Colon, and I am a student in the Emerging Media Studies program. I moved here from Seattle, Washington, but I'm originally from St. Petersburg, Florida. So I've kind of touched on a lot of different parts of the country during my various travels. I did not enroll at BU immediately after my undergraduate program. I actually took about 5 years where I was working. And so if any of you are considering getting a degree after being a working professional and have questions about that adjustment, I would be happy to answer any questions there. It was definitely a big decision for me. I was working before joining the program as the associate editor at a magazine called Sojourners. So definitely an adjustment from the 9 to 5 back to being a student, but I have loved my experience. BU has been a wonderful place to be. I have really supportive professors, and I am really glad that I made this decision.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. And now we'll pass it to Mandil.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mandile. I'm from Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm an international student, and I am a master's in journalism student. Before coming to BU, so I did my undergrad here in the States as well. And after that, I worked at a media tech company in DC. And then I moved to Paris for a bit, where I worked as an au pair. So similar to Christina, I took some time off after undergrad. Definitely a big adjustment from working 25 hours, taking care of kids, to being a full-time student, also with an on-campus job. But I've enjoyed my time here at BU so far. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you so much. And finally, we'll pass it to Michael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael. I am originally from Beijing, China, and I also completed my undergrad here at BU as well. So this is my 5th year at Boston University, and the experience has been wonderful. I love my professors. I love my classmates. I love the school. I love Boston. So I am majoring in public relations, doing a master's degree at here. So I also skipped a year after my graduation in the undergraduate level to work in the field of management consulting and to figure out the role of communications in the business world. So I'm interested in going to corporate communications, crisis communications, and financial communications field. I also had experiences in PR lab as the director, an account executive, an account supervisor, and I have experiences working in the field of healthcare, cybersecurity, architecture, and retail in general. So nice to meet you all.
Great, thank you, Michael. So as you can see, our three panelists are in three different programs coming from three pretty different backgrounds. So hopefully they can address a wide breadth of questions and answer any inquiries that you have. I pulled a list of some questions that you might want to ask here just to get our brains moving and thinking about the types of things you may be curious about. So again, you can ask about student life, I put some questions about housing, transportation, or questions about the program. So favorite class, extracurricular activities, workload. These are some things that you might want to ask. I'm going to leave this slide for just a few more seconds to get us thinking, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Again, you can use the chat, or you can go ahead and raise your hand and turn on your camera and ask your question that way, whatever you prefer. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, great. So does anybody want to get us started with a question? Yeah, Olivia.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this. I was just wondering if you could, I guess, I don't know what the best way to do it is, but for everyone to just kind of go through and like kind of explain their decision-making process when they were like at this stage that we're at now in terms of like figuring out if the program is right for you, like what were the questions that you guys had as you were making the choice and what stood out about BU?
Okay, I can take that first if we don't mind. So so I completed my undergrad at BU, also studying public relations, and I just want to, take a step further and want to have a more understanding of public relations. So that's why I initially decided to do a master's degree. And another important reason is that a master's degree provides you with the important networks and people. And the platform of Boston University's College of Communication is absolutely wonderful. It helps you to connect with maybe world-leading communicators in like world-leading agencies and in-house. For example, I got Professor Sheffer. Professor Sheffer is the professor in one of my class, and he used to be the CCO of GE. So basically entering the master's in Boston University's College of Communication gives you that opportunity to know the best in the industry. And realistically speaking, it grants you jobs if you really know how to network and work yourself out in this platform. So I would say that resource and the level of education experience is what I'm trying to get. And that is like my decision-making process of getting into Boston University.
I can go next. For me, I studied communications and French in undergrad. So my program was very broad, very theoretical. And after undergrad and working in DC, I knew I wanted to do something with storytelling, but I felt that the knowledge and skills that I gained from undergrad weren't specific enough to get me to where I wanted to be. So I chose to do a master's degree that was more specific. So I chose journalism. In terms of picking BU, I picked this program because it had a multimedia focus. So even though I know that I want to do journalism, I'm still not sure about which medium I want to focus on or how I want to tell the stories that I want to tell. So still specific, but also a little bit of leeway to kind of explore what I want to do.
I think for me, similar to Mandalay, I had a very broad undergraduate experience. I majored in sociology and anthropology. And so I ended up kind of using that to go into communications and journalism work after graduation and realized that there were some skills that I just wanted to know more about that I wasn't able to gain in my role in the workplace, specifically having to do with kind of the ethics of social media use, and thinking about user experience and website design and usability testing. And Boston University is really unique in that they have kind of the only program in the nation that's focused on emerging media in the way that we do here. And so when I found that program, I realized that it had a lot of the elements that I was really interested in studying, while also incorporating some of my same passions that I came into the field with.
Thank you. And then I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is it Meta? Meta?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, it's Meda. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for doing this. I had a couple of questions among other questions, but I'll just restrict myself to 2 questions. I'm curious about the work, whether it's work on campus, or how is the scholarship, like helped with 20 hours of work experience? Does it suffice? Because I was on a Fulbright and I returned in June. I returned to India in June. So I was there in Bridgewater State University, which is very close to Boston. So I know that the price of the living expenses are very high. So I was kind of curious about how you go about it, and whether it's sufficient enough. Because as an international student, I have the restriction to work just 20 hours a week on a normal term. And then another thing would be like, I would be applying for master's in emerging media studies. If you could tell me a bit more about, that's for Christina, if you could tell me more about your experiences and what are the things that personally you liked about the program. Thank you.
Okay, so just to address the first question about working as scholarship, right? So for me, I'm an international student, so the limit is to work maximum of 20 hours per week. So I'm now working as a graduate assistant for a professor for her class at 10 hours per week, and another professor for her research efforts at 10 hours per week. So that adds up to 20 hours per week. And it just grants me, extra money for living, I would say. And I think that, with 20 hours per week of work, the money you earn can basically cover like the living expense of the week. Like when you're living in Boston, maybe a little bit extra for me. So I think that's definitely enough. And for scholarship, I think it grants you scholarship on a merit basis upon application. So when you apply to Boston University and they decide to maybe give you an admission to the College of Communication, then they will grant you scholarships based on your experience. That is how I got my scholarship here in Boston University for my tuition. And the amount of tuition, I think it really depends on, if the school was really impressed with your background and that sort of stuff. It is decided by the admission committee. Yeah, and for more scholarship questions, I think I can refer it to Jakey, because I think she definitely knows a lot more about that than me. So, yeah.
I can also jump in here. I'm also an international student, so I'm in a similar situation. I do have an on-campus job. I work 20 hours a week. And then I also did receive some scholarship money. I will say that finances are a big consideration when you're thinking about graduate school. So I actually got into BU to start last fall, but I deferred because I wasn't in a place where financially I could stop the program. So after taking a year off to live in Paris and doing research about student loans for international students, which I can provide more information on if you're interested, that's when I finally decided that, okay, I think I can make this decision to go to grad school. Because if you don't have a nest egg or parents who are supporting you, grad school is a huge, huge financial commitment. And you have to think about when you get your job afterwards, like paying off loans and how you're going to make it through. So yeah, just something to consider. I think that's like the biggest consideration when you're applying for grad school.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you both summarize that really well. It really is a lot of different I would say it's a bit of a juggling act of making sure that, you're able, because it is an expensive city, like Boston, is costly. And so I think finding roommates, figuring out how to like cut costs in different areas where you can. I work as a TA on campus, and I really love being able to do that work. It doesn't cover everything. And so finding ways to just be really mindful of my spending. And then, yeah, I do a lot of freelance work too, to help kind of cover other costs. And in regards to your other question about the Emerging Media Studies program, it has been a really exciting program. I think we cover a lot. I always find it difficult to kind of summarize just everything that the program touches on because it does cover just so many different things, which I love about it. I would say one reason why I really love it is because we cover a lot of research practice. So you learn a lot about, statistics, how to think critically about how to interpret results and present those. But we also span as far as doing website design. So right now I'm getting ready to turn in a website for a class that I coded myself using HTML. And so you just get such a wide array of experiences that I think you can decide getting kind of comprehensive understanding of what you need to know to be at the forefront of how media evolves and changes, which for those of us who are interested in media, we know that it changes rapidly all the time. So it's been a really awesome program. I hope that one day maybe we can find a way to summarize it in a really concise way. I haven't figured it out yet, but maybe someone will.
Thank you. And to kind of just piggyback on some of that, if you do have more questions about scholarship or financial aid, you can definitely email us at comgrad@bu.edu, which I'll put in the chat. But scholarship is merit-based and determined during the application process, as Michael mentioned. And then we do have a question in the chat from Eli, which is asking, this is kind of similar to the first question, but when you were weighing different schools, so what other programs were you considering and why did you ultimately go with BU?
So I applied to 3 schools. I applied to BU for a journalism program. I applied to NYU for, I guess, an offshoot of a journalism program. It was called Cultural Criticism and Reporting. And then I applied to the American University in Paris for a global communications program. I got into AUP and BU, not NYU. But BU was my first choice because, as I said earlier, there was huge focus on multimedia journalism and lots of opportunities to hone very specific skills. Yeah, I think that was my main draw to BU. I had also done an internship here in 2019, so I knew that I loved Boston and I wanted to come back at some point, which is how BU was on my radar.
So for me, I don't think my situation is like widely applicable, but because I'm from BU for the undergraduate degree, so my BU has always been my first choice entering a master's degree. So I really didn't consider any other options because BU is like such a good, I think it's such a good suitable platform for me. I know the professors, I know all the resources, so and then I said to myself, why not, right? So that is how I came to BU.
I think for me, I looked into a media studies program at the University of Oregon, and was also interested in the human-centered design engineering program at the University of Washington. And I think I ultimately decided to enroll at BU because I felt like the emerging media program really combined the elements that I loved about both of those other programs. And so I could kind of have it all in a way. And that was really compelling for me because I could have the journalism elements that I really loved about journalism programs, but also have the design elements that I loved about design programs. So that ultimately made it a very easy decision.
Thank you. And let us know, Eli, if there was anything else that you were curious about with that. And I also don't want to mispronounce your name, but is it Wasifuden?
Hi. Yes, that's Wasifudin Mohammed. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I had a couple of questions, basically. For starters, I'm a fully working individual, and the thing I was hoping is, I was gonna ask is, do you guys know if the courses here offer online classes for which any working individual, full-time working individual can attend, and how often do you have to be on site or in the university to attend classes? The other question I had to ask is in particular with Mandile. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. I'm looking to take a course in journalism as well. And just wanted to know how has this helped you in deciding which field you want to practice it in, either multimedia or broadcast journalism or print journalism? Did you had any help, or how is it going with your decision over there? That's going to be all. Thanks.
I can take on the first question. I think that unfortunately BU currently don't offer any online courses from my knowledge, because BU really I think BU really wants to precious that experience of in-class learning. And so all of the BU courses now are like in person on campus. So yeah, I don't think we have any online courses, but I do think that the experience of exactly being in person in classroom is very important for my study. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll answer the second question. I'm not sure about the first one, but I would say a lot of the classes that I'm taking right now, because this is my first semester, are very, I guess, basic. It's all the fundamentals of journalism, introduction to reporting, media law, and then some basic like photography skills and writing skills. And next semester, I'm going to be taking some radio and podcasting classes, and as well as a graphic design course, which I'm really excited about. But I think because there's so many opportunities to take courses that are hyper specific to certain skills or certain media, I have the opportunity to explore all the fields of journalism or all the medium and decide what I want to do. So I would just say, if you do end up coming to BU and enrolling in the master's program, try to take some courses that are out of your comfort zone, or something that you've always wanted to try but haven't had the opportunity to. And for me, that's radio, which I'm super excited about for next semester. And also the professors are really supportive. They all have industry experience. A lot of them are currently working journalists. So if you have questions about how they found their beat or their medium, they're always there to support you. They're basically mentors to us.
Thank you. So to answer the first question a little bit more, so at the College of Communication, we do not offer online programs or online courses. There are some programs that are online. I'm going to post a link in the chat for distance learning. So there are some schools and colleges at BU that might offer courses online. Specifically like through the Metropolitan College, you might find something that you could be interested in. But in terms of like the Master of Science in Journalism program here at the College of Communication, all of those classes would be in person on campus in Boston. So I hope that answers your question. And then we can go ahead to Wisdom.
All right, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me. All right. My question goes specifically to Christina. Currently, I on my master's in journalism course, but of course I had an undergraduate in computer science. So I am looking at doing a research in the intersection of journalism and technology and society. And I'm, of course, looking at applying in the same course that you're doing at the moment, this PhD in emerging media. First question, there is a requirement of the GRE, which looks like it's very compulsory. I really wanted to find out because at the moment, I really doubt if I could, dedicate enough time to prepare for the GRE test and maybe ace it well enough to really improve my application. I don't have a GRE score yet, but now I'm still working on my master's. I'm preparing well enough. So when I round up, I could, join up if I'm admitted or if I do get through the admission criteria. So I really wanted to find out, is there a way around the GRE? Then secondly, based on my research interest, I've been able to see what's been done in Boston, and I think I really like a bit of it. You've also explained, some of it to me, but looking at my research interest, would you really advise me to come to Boston?
Sure. I'm going to just jump in quickly about the GRE question. So for the PhD program, the GRE is mandatory. We do not waive it for any applicant. All of the students coming into the PhD program will have had to have a master's, so that's also a requirement. So all students applying will have a master's and will need to take the GRE. Also, I can definitely have Christina talk a little bit more about the curriculum for emerging media, but she is a master's student in the program. So if you do have questions specific to the PhD program, we did recently just host an information session for the PhD program, which was recorded. If you want to email us at comgrad@bu.edu, I'm happy to connect you with the Division of Emerging Media Studies, send you some information about faculty and also a link to that recording so you can learn more about specifically the PhD program. But Christina, I don't know if you want to jump in about some of the research or professors that in the program, anything like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I would really encourage you, if you haven't already, to just read through some of our professors' research that they've published. Particularly, Dr. Chris Wells has done a lot of research kind of at the intersection of journalism and communication technology that I think would be of interest. And his research in particular was one of the big reasons why I decided to enroll in this program, was because that was also my interest and research interest, was thinking about how journalism and emerging media systems interact and kind of the ethics of use there. So definitely look through the professor's research just to figure out, if it does align with what you're interested in, and also just because it is interesting in general.
Thanks so much. So the next question that I have here is from, from another Christina, who's asking about resources for finding jobs or networking. I don't know if any of you have used the Career Services office yet, but does anyone want to jump in about that?
I can start. So I completed the undergrad here at BU. So the Career Services, I can testify, it is like very, very good. It helps you to correct your resumes, helps you get with your cover letters, helps you do mock interviews. You can find basically all possible resource in BU Career Services Center, especially in the College of Communication. We have our separate Career Service Center so that we can get our unique advantages honed out by professionals and students in comm. So I think that is actually really helpful. So when I was in undergrad, I used Handshake, and during a master's, you can also use Handshake. Handshake is a platform where companies interested in hiring BU students can post jobs or internships on the platform, and BU students can directly apply to those jobs or internship opportunities on Handshake. So I think that is like a nice opportunity to get you started with hands-on experiences, no matter you're in emerging media studies, public relations, or journalism, or other related comm professionals. And I think the second important resource is actually your professors. For example, in my class, I have Gary Sheffer as my professor. He used to be the CCO of GE, General Electric. So he definitely knows a lot of industry experts and leading communication professionals. And if you really get to know your professor well, they can eventually refer you to jobs, internship opportunities. I think professors at BU are actually your greatest resource in terms of career and in terms of networking. So really exploit that resource at BU and really get to know your professors well. Go to office hours, chat to them, talk about their interesting topics, behave and participate in class. Just do everything you can, just impress the professor, and you will not regret it.
Thank you. And then we have a few questions. Andressa, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Nice meeting you all here. Thank you for your time. I'm a 27 years old journalist from Brazil, and I'm interested in MS in journalism. And as you said, I have taken some time off after my undergraduation, and I've been working for 5 years in PR agencies with companies focused on fashion, consumer goods, and retail segment. It's something like Michael said, actually. And I'm considering this master degree in order to strengthen my journalism side so that I can revival it somehow, but in a way that I can also use my professional background as a PR specialist. So I guess my question is, how do you see, where do you guys see yourselves after the conclusion of the master degree? And how do you think that BU can contribute to this in the communications market? I guess that's it. Thank you.
That's a really good question. I would say we have a lot of guest speakers in our classes from time to time. And last week, we had a guest speaker who went to BU and who now runs a podcast studio, but it's not directly journalism. So I would say if you are interested in journalism, by all means do the program, but there will also be opportunities for you to explore, I guess, the intersections of journalism and other fields of communication. So maybe you go through the program and you realize, okay, I don't want to be a journalist, just a journalist. There are definitely people who have taken that path. And again, just work with your professors to kind of map out where you want to go. For me, I'm still figuring out where I want to be afterwards, which is kind of why I'm in the master's degree. And I'm just really open to, I guess, exploring as much as possible.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Christina, go ahead. You can go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that I think one thing that I considered when I was looking into programs was less about kind of like what job I want after the program, which is important, but more about like what skills I wanted to learn that then could be applied to different jobs. Because I definitely knew that I wanted to start transitioning. I was kind of more in an editorial trajectory and working more on the editorial, and I wanted to go more onto the kind of business side of journalism and media. And so was there a program where I could gain skills that would be useful in that particular discipline? And so that kind of helped me figure out how to like approach my program, how to figure out what classes I wanted to take, what skills I wanted to dive more deeply into, that then I can ultimately apply to perhaps a wide range of job titles when I graduate.
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking into entering the combination of business and public relations. So I'm looking into maybe in-house roles in financial institutions or in an agency environment where I can talk business and work in a business environment. So at BU, we have courses offering financial communications, corporate communications, and to teach you how to read financial statements in college of communication. I think that is really awesome. And not every other college of communication, they actually offer this course. So I think this is really unique that BU actually realizes the importance of the business language to a communicator. And I think this is a really nice opportunity for me to accumulate my business acumen and to really get, my career started.
Thank you. And then it looks like Anna, you also have a question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for doing this. So my name is Anna. I'm a current senior at Loyola University in Maryland. and I'm studying sociology and political science. So I have two questions. One for Christina, because I know you mentioned you were a sociology and anthropology undergrad. So what advice, if any, do you have for somebody who's not studying communications in undergrad as they move to apply what they are learning in undergrad to a communications field? And then for Michael, how has the transition from undergraduate life to graduate life been different, if any? And would you recommend going right into your graduate degree from your undergraduate career? Thank you.
So I think in regards to kind of thinking about your sociology degree, I think there are so many intersections between the study of sociology and the study of communications. And I think you'll find that when you kind of start taking classes in it. And so I think any ways that you can kind of make those connections more explicit for yourself in your application with people who you talk to. I mean, a lot of the communications field is about understanding how to talk with people, how to make compelling messages, how to tell stories that resonate, and understanding communities, which is what sociology does, is kind of the foundation of that. So I think it's a great degree to have. I mean, I'm definitely biased because I loved my undergraduate degree. But I think there's definitely, I think for me, I felt like it set me up for success in my career as well as my graduate program.
Okay, so for the second question, so I think the major difference between undergraduate and graduate life is actually the pace of study. So in undergraduate, I found myself, having a lot of free times to do things, and but during the graduate level, I just found myself always studying. So the pace is actually more demanding and requires a lot of self-discipline because undergraduate professors will remind you of your deadlines, but in graduate level courses, basically you have to take care of yourself a little bit more. Professors won't be that proactive in terms of reminding you of deadlines. So that is basically one major thing to watch out. And for the second thing, I think economically, graduate level students, they are allowed to take on more roles in schools. For example, such as graduate assistants, teaching assistants. That basically can get you that extra money for you to to boost your quality of life, if I can say that. So I think that is major two differences. And I do recommend you I think it's good to maybe enter from the undergraduate level to graduate level immediately, because you have that study flow going, and you can basically accumulate on your previous knowledge and gain more knowledge. But I also think it is good to maybe sort of accumulate your working experience before entering a graduate level degree, so that you know more what you want in terms of your skill set. For example, I worked for a year before I entered my graduate level degree. I got the offer from BU around the May of 2021, but I chose to defer my admission for a year so that I can work for a year and figure out what I want more clearly. So after 1 year of working, I found myself, I need more presentation skills. I need more skills to read financial statements and all that sort of stuff. And that is when I'm entering the graduate level degree and know sort of what course I'm going to take to hone my skill sets. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Anne in the chat, and it sounds like all three of you are working on campus. So can you talk about how you found your position, if you applied for it, and for the students that are international, so Mandela and Michael, how is that process for you as working in the US as an international student?
Okay. So for me, I'm taking on two roles, and I think there are two major ways for you to get positions on campus as an international student. To either receive emails from CommGraduate asking for positions, opening positions. For example, we have an undergraduate course called Comm 101, and usually that course requires a lot of teaching assistants helping the course in terms of grading and discussion sessions. So that is when most students get their first job on campus. For me, I get referrals from professors to other professors, in terms of requiring GA and TAs. So I actually got my 2 roles both from referrals from professors, but for most people, I think getting on Student Link or just receiving emails about opening positions of TAs and GAs are like the major channels for you to get positions on campus.
Yeah, I would just echo that. During the summer leading up to the fall semester, you'll get a lot of emails from ComGrad with a lot of job opportunities. As Michael mentioned, there's the CO 101 course that requires a lot of TAs. I'm the head TA for that course. Christina is actually one of the TAs for that course. That's a good opportunity because the course needs about 27 to 29 TAs. So if you want to be a teaching assistant, I would recommend applying for that. I believe there graduate resident assistant opportunities. So I live on campus through BU graduate housing, and we have 2 RAs, I believe. So you can apply for that kind of job. You can apply for a research assistant. There are a lot of opportunities. I would say apply as soon as you get the emails, because those positions will be very competitive. As for working as an international student, the only restriction is that you can only work 20 hours a week. And that's like a very hard cap. You can't go over, otherwise it will mess with your immigration status and you don't want to get into trouble. But otherwise, the process is the same. You get the same rate pay. It's just all about managing your time as a graduate student.
And just to add on to the point, I think for the process of international students, we do need to go to the ISSO. So that is the International Student I think that's International Students and Scholars Office, right? The ISSO, the full name. So you go there and they'll help you with all the documents you need. For example, you need like to prove, like to authorize your work. For example, there are like specific documents, procedures you need to follow. But ISSO at BU will take care of everything. They're super helpful and are pretty respondent. So I would say, yeah, you're in good hands. If you want to work on campus as an international student, yeah, just go to the ISSO and find out more information about that. Just get all the documents and procedures done, and then yeah, and you are working as the same as everybody else.
Thank you. And then Julia, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I would be an international student, and I have some problems with the MFA in screenwriting because I can't find inside what do they need to applicate. So if they need something written, so maybe a script or something else, and I don't know what they want because it's not written or I can find it.
Sure, thanks, Julia. So I'll send you a direct message on the chat with the link to the application requirements page for the screenwriting program and all of the programs. So the screenwriting program requires a personal statement, and it also requires 2 writing samples. So typically part of a script or a screenplay or a teleplay, some example of original work. But I'll send you a quick direct message in the chat in a second with that information.
And I would like to know, because I came now, so I would like to know for international students, are there scholarships or it's just working after being enrolled? Or
yeah, okay. So so for scholarships, it's merit based. After your admission letter, I think it's written on your admission letter based on your application and based on the decision of the admission committee. So we do have the chance to get merit-based scholarships. And I think you also have the chance to apply for scholarships, but I don't think I know how that works. I can refer to JK, but yeah, and you can also work on campus to get like payments. I hope that answers your question.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so all students, international or domestic, are considered for scholarship during the admissions process. So while the faculty are considering you for admission, they're also considering you for scholarship. So scholarships can range anywhere from like 5,000 a year up to a maximum around like 32,000 a year. So the most competitive scholarship offers typically cover like a little over half of tuition and fees. So usually students are filling in the remainder with either paying out of pocket, working on campus, or looking into educational loan options. That's typically how a student would finance the program. There are some outside scholarships that you can apply for, but in terms of what we offer through the College of Communication, you're automatically considered for it. So there's no separate application for scholarship. And then we have so many questions, which is great. I just don't want to lose any of them in the chat here. I think one that came up a few times is housing. So I know Christina at the beginning mentioned like living with roommates, but can you guys talk a little bit about where you live, whether it's on or off campus, and how you found that living arrangement?
Okay, so here's the advice. If you are coming to Boston to study, maybe I think it's next September, right? You better start your housing application. You better look your house now, like right now. You better start looking at them right now because like the housing in Boston is like so crazy. It is really hard to get like a housing. And I think for graduate level students, BU doesn't offer like a lot of like dormitories to students for graduate levels. So I think for most graduate students, the option is to live off campus, so which means that you need to rent your own house or rent your own apartments. So I would suggest you to look as early as possible, for example, now, in order to, pick like a nice house and,
Yeah, the rental market in Boston is definitely unique, I think, because there are just so many universities here. And so I do agree that the earlier you begin your search, the better, just because you'll have more options and more options that perhaps are what you're looking for and within the price range that you're hoping for. So I live in Brighton, which is about a 20-minute bus ride from campus. So it's a little bit like, I wouldn't say that I like live on campus. It's definitely like I commute to school and then I go home, but it's worked really well for me. And I walk about 5 minutes to catch my bus, and then it drops me off like right in front of the communications building. So that's one of the really nice things about Boston, is that like the public transportation system is really good. So you don't have to live like right next to the campus to be able to easily attend your classes. So it gives you more options in housing. So there are some Facebook groups too that you'll be added to once you kind of decide to enroll, where you can connect with people who are also looking for roommates. And that's super helpful as well.
So this was particularly challenging for me because my timeline for finding housing was kind of shortened due to some logistical issues. And also as an international student, a lot of Boston like housing places, I don't know what you call them, but they want a cosigner if you don't have a large enough income to cover. I think it's upfront 3 months of rent is usually what they ask for. And if you don't have that, you need a cosigner or a guarantor, which is someone who does have that income, who will sign your lease with you. And usually they want someone in the US. I didn't have that person, so that made my housing search even more challenging. I eventually found housing on campus. I live in, I think it's the only technically like BU graduate dormitory setup. It's called Peabody Hall. And I pay $775 a month, which is on the lower end for Boston. It's very basic. It's literally a dorm room with a shared kitchen, shared bathroom. So I would recommend looking into Peabody if you have a low budget. I did need a cosigner. I only needed to pay my first month's rent to live on campus. So I didn't need to worry about covering 3 times that amount or having extra money in the bank. So if you do want something on the lower end and you're not looking for anything fancy, you just want somewhere to sleep, I would recommend some of BU's on-campus housing options.
Thank you so much. Yeah, but living in Boston and the housing situation is definitely a trickier thing. So that's why once you're admitted and you choose to enroll, it's one of the first things that we recommend you start planning for. I did put in the chat a link to our housing office website where there's some information about on-campus housing for graduate students. As Michael and Mandalay mentioned, it's pretty limited, but if you get it's kind of first come, first serve. So the earlier you get there, the better, and the more options that are available. And let's see, I think there's also a question in here, and we're coming close to time. We have about 8 minutes left, so might be able to get like 1 or 2 more questions in. But I think there's one question in the chat about kind of what your schedule looks like. So how many classes you take per semester and what your normal week looks like, if any of you want to answer that.
Okay, so for first semester public relations students, so I think all my 4 courses are like fundamental required courses that I didn't get a chance to pick because like the first semester all courses for public relations are automatically picked for you because eventually that is, everybody's are taking the same course because that is like requirement courses. So for me, I think my schedules are like pretty occupied because I have 2 on-campus jobs. And I also need to take 4 classes, and these 4 classes, we have group projects, we have papers. So I would say I wake up at around 7 every morning and go to bed at around 12 every night. So if I have classes, I would take classes, but for the rest of the time, I would just, find libraries on BU campus and just work on my projects, work on my work, on my jobs. And I would go to BU Fit Rec Center. So there is a very fancy gym at BU. It is free for all BU students. You can go swimming, you can go skating, you can go running, you can go, jogging. That is a really nice place for you to exercise your body. And during night, I would just go back to my home and, watch some Netflix, play some piano. That's it. Yeah, that's my day, basically. Yeah, and over the weekend, I would just go to, Boston is a wonderful city. Over the weekend, I definitely recommend you to go around Boston to eat, to go to museums, to go to exhibitions, to go to all these interesting events in Boston, just to exploit, the convenient location of BU and just do everything, at your spare time.
I was just going to echo that it's the same for the journalism program in that the courses you take your first semester are all required. So you might not be as excited to take them, but you'll have the spring semester to look forward to. The schedule, especially if you're working, is quite, I guess, packed, at least for me. I don't have a lot of free time during the week, but I do take advantage of the weekends to get a lot of work done, but also to explore Boston, as Michael said.
Thank you. So hopefully that answers that question. And then Ibrahim, do you have a question for Michael? Did you say in the chat?
No, it was a general you.
Oh, sorry. I was asking Ibrahim, but do you have another question, Julia?
Didn't you call me? Sorry. I didn't, sorry.
Okay.
No, I have a question.
Okay, you can go ahead.
If you work on campus for research, do you have any chance to keep working on campus after graduating as a PhD student, or it's only a job, temporary job?
So the assistantship positions are for current graduate students, so students that are in the master's programs. The research that you're doing can definitely help with like an application to a PhD program. So it's something that you can add to your resume and build, that relationship with a professor or faculty member who can also provide guidance on applying to PhD programs. But you likely wouldn't continue in that same position if you went on to a PhD program at Boston University, because you would likely be in a different department with different faculty. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. So we are coming up on 11. Does anybody have maybe like one last question? And if not, that's okay. Okay, yeah, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Hey, hello. Thank you for this. Yeah, I just want to know from Michael that, being a TA to different professors, how hard it is to manage your studies along with those two roles, and how hard it is to manage your extracurriculars along with these two roles.
It was a little bit difficult to hear that question. Would you be able to type it into the chat for us?
I think he was
Yeah, of course.
asking Michael how difficult it is to manage his time with the two roles that he does on campus.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I would say that it's pretty challenging at the first because I not only have to study for courses, do my job, but I also have to prepare for job interviews. And also, I have a girlfriend, so it is very important to, really organize your time well so that, you don't just mess up with everything. So I would say I would suggest, you use the Excel as a timesheet to really schedule your time on an hourly basis. So for example, from 10 to 11, what you're planning to do, from 11 to 12, what you're planning to do, just sort of, lay everything out and just sort of follow the schedule. I think you'll be all right. And just don't stay up late overnight, because that will mess up with your schedule. For example, if you sleep like 3 a.m. in the morning, then even if you wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning, you will be like so tired, so you are not able to do anything. Just go back to sleep early at around 12, and you'll be all right.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks for everyone for attending, and a real shout out to our three panelists. Thank you so much for your insight. It's super valuable as our prospective students are considering COM and BU. So we do have a webpage, which I'm gonna post in the chat, which is our ambassador page. So you'll see these three students on that page, as well as other students in other programs. I know there were some questions about the film and television studies or the screenwriting program. So we do have ambassadors for those programs too. So you can definitely reach out to them if you have a specific question about a program that we didn't really talk about today. And then I'll post that one more time. And then I'm also going to, again, plug our email for the Graduate Affairs Office, which is comgrad@bu.edu. So if we didn't get to your question, I know there were a few application technical questions, things like that. Comgrad is a really great place to reach out for those questions. So thank you all again so much, and we look forward to seeing your application. And please reach out if you have any other questions.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.